The Mont Blanc pauses in my hand halfway through my name, a dark pool of ink spreading across the $7 million acquisition contract. On the speakerphone, Nadine from Velvet Knot Weddings clears her throat with the dread of someone assigned to deliver bad news. "I'm sorry, Miss Wade, but your family has requested that we remove you from the guest list." My eyes slide to the glass wall and the Seattle skyline beyond it, a view that usually reminds me how far I've come. 48 floors up, looking down on a city where Wade Collective now controls 18 premier venues. Below, headlights drift along the streets like tiny constellations in motion. Life moving forward while I sit immobile in my office chair. "There must be a mistake," I say, forcing my voice to stay level though my fingers begin to shake. "I contributed $60,000 to my sister's wedding." "Yes, well." Nadine hesitates. "I was told those funds were considered a gift with no expectations attached." The acquisition contract in front of me, the key to expanding into our 5th state, fades to background noise. This should be a professional high point. Instead, the only thing I feel is the sharp, clean edge of betrayal. "The money has already been allocated to vendors," Nadine continues, her tone tightening. "Your parents were very clear this was discussed with you." The pen in my hand creates another dark blot on the page as my grip tightens. 6 months ago, I'd quietly wired the money after overhearing Celeste whispering to our mother in the kitchen during Sunday dinner. "We might need to scale back," she'd said, voice thin with worry. I'd stepped back into the dining room, pretending I hadn't heard, while my father congratulated my soon-to-be brother-in-law on his promotion to regional sales manager. "Now that's a real career," Dad had said, raising his glass. When the conversation drifted to my recent acquisition of 3 vineyard properties, he'd chuckled. "Eleanor's still playing event planner, but at least she's having fun." I hadn't corrected him. I hadn't mentioned 8-figure revenue or 4 states of operation. I told myself the numbers would speak for themselves eventually. The next morning, I'd written the check for Celeste, comforted by the thought that, if nothing else, money was one language my parents understood. "Email me a breakdown of how my contribution was allocated," I tell Nadine now, my tone cooling into the one I use in difficult negotiations. "Miss Wade, I'm sure your parents," the email, I repeat. "Itemized expenditures." Today, I hear her swallow. "Your parents assured me this was all discussed with you." I don't want to be caught in the middle of a family. This isn't about family. It's about contracts. My hands stop trembling. I wake up my second monitor and pull up our internal vendor database, fingers moving with new precision. "You'll have the breakdown within the hour," she says quickly. Good. The call disconnects. I jab the intercom button. "Amber, connect me with Jessica in legal." Not my parents. Not Celeste. No shouting match in my childhood kitchen. The Wade family taught me one reliable lesson: power speaks louder than feelings. I stand and cross to the window, pressing my palm to the cool glass. For a second, my reflection reveals what I hide in boardrooms: the younger sister still angling for approval, the daughter whose accomplishments come with an asterisk, the outsider peering into her own family. A single tear threatens. I blink until it recedes. 20 minutes. That's how long I'll give myself before Jessica arrives. 20 minutes to accept that my only sister's wedding may be the final battleground in a war I never chose, but can no longer ignore. The skyline blurs, then sharpens as I focus on the properties Wade Collective owns. Buildings where other families celebrate milestones. The empire I raised while mine looked right past me. I roll my shoulders back and return to my desk. The acquisition contract still lies waiting for my signature, another step in our growth. More success. More proof. None of it enough to make them see me. But maybe this time they won't have a choice. An email from Velvet Knot arrives with the clinical finality of a test result. I open it, pulse steady but elevated. As per our conversation with Richard and Diana Wade, we're pleased to confirm their generous gift covering all primary vendor expenses for Celeste's wedding. Their generous gift. My hand goes to my sternum, as if I can physically hold my ribs in place while reality shifts. I grip the edge of my desk with the other hand until the room stops tilting. 3 clicks into our vendor network system, and my dread crystallizes into certainty. Every major vendor for Celeste's wedding is on my own organizational chart. Florence Floral, Westlake Catering, Taylor Photography, all subsidiaries or strategic partners of Wade Collective. My phone buzzes with a notification. A group text thread, my parents, Celeste, her fiancé, scrolls across the screen. 3 weeks of wedding chatter I was never looped into, though I paid for the show. I've arranged for the ice sculpture delivery at 4 p.m., my mother had typed. The Wade family knows how to celebrate properly, my father had replied. Indeed. 30 minutes later, Jessica and Martin join me in the executive conference room, expressions carefully neutral. Contracts glow on the projection screen behind me. The vendor agreements are airtight, Jessica says, adjusting her glasses. They can withdraw services with 21 days' notice and no penalties. There's something else, Martin adds, sliding a folder across the table. Velvet Knot Weddings officially became a Wade Collective acquisition last month. The paperwork finalized yesterday. And the venue? I ask, though the answer's already forming. Willow Creek Estate is held under Pinnacle Holdings, he says. One of our subsidiaries. The pinnacle of irony, I finish for him. They booked a property I own without realizing it. Jessica studies me. If we follow through, your family does have potential legal recourse. Against me? I arch a brow. Their uninvited daughter? The laugh that escapes is sharp and unfamiliar. Spell out what exactly my family stands to lose. Martin taps his tablet. The projected spreadsheet updates. Venue. Catering. Florals. Photography. Videography. Coordination services, he lists. All deposits are non-refundable under current terms. And the timeline? I ask. 20 days until the wedding, Jessica confirms. If we initiate service withdrawals today, they'll have virtually no chance of securing replacements at comparable quality. I think of Celeste's breathless call months ago about Willow Creek's wisteria, how she'd cried describing the rose-gold sunsets over the pond. Dreams I quietly underwrote while being erased from the guest list. There's also brand risk, Martin adds, shifting in his chair. We're heading into Portland hearings. If this goes public, venue magnate sabotages sister's wedding isn't the headline we want. I move to the window, Seattle sprawling beneath us. Skyscrapers, cranes, the tangible outcome of my strategy and stamina. My reflection in the glass looks back at me, composed now, sure. Begin coordinated service withdrawals, I say. Effective immediately. Jessica and Martin exchange a glance but nod. They know when a decision is final. My office phone rings the moment the door closes behind them. Nadine again, her earlier poise replaced with panic. Miss Wade, there must be some mistake. All the vendors are sending termination notices. No mistake, I say. The contracts are being enforced. But your sister's wedding apparently requires my presence, I cut in. Just not my money. I hang up and sink into my chair. As the first cancellation notices go out, a question gnaws at me. Has the price of my success been isolation? Should I let the consequences land as written, or pull them back at the last minute and try to salvage both the event and my dignity? What do you do when the people who should value you most insist on treating you as an afterthought? The answer waits on the far side of the storm I've just set in motion. By morning, my phone is a live wire on my desk, vibrating every 15 minutes. For the 5th time since breakfast, my father's name lights up the screen. I let it buzz into voicemail, then jab the speaker button. Eleanor. This has gone far enough. Rage roughens his voice. If these vendors aren't reinstated by noon tomorrow, I'm calling my attorney. You may think you're being clever, but this is criminal interference with contracts. The irony that he'd be suing his own daughter's company almost makes me laugh. Almost. Another call comes in before the message ends. My mother. Sweetheart, she begins, syrup thick with reproach. How could you do this to your sister? What kind of person ruins someone's special day? We raised you better than this. I end the playback midway through her performance and turn to the window. The morning fog has burned off, leaving the city sharply defined. I wish my own internal landscape felt as clear. Amber appears in my doorway. A neat stack of pink message slips in hand. 3 calls from the Hendersons, she says. They say they're friends of your parents. And Mr. Blackwell from the Downtown Business Association wants to know if there's any truth to rumors about vendor problems with the Wade, Pembroke wedding. They've been busy, I say, accepting the slips. There's more. She produces the Seattle Times, folded to the Society page. A small item is circled. Sources report a sudden vendor exodus from the upcoming Wade, Pembroke nuptials, leaving Seattle society buzzing about what mishap might have struck one of the season's most anticipated events. I place the paper down carefully. I've moved your investor briefing to next week, Amber adds. Jessica thought you might need room to manage this. Thank you. Once she leaves, I reschedule 2 more meetings. There's no point pretending I can focus on expansion models while my phone keeps lighting up with accusations and manufactured concern. The day dissolves into PR triad. Business contacts call, having been fed carefully edited versions of the drama by my parents. I listen, clarify without oversharing, and let my professionalism stand in for the family loyalty I'm supposed to display. That night, I sit cross-legged on my living room floor, laptop balanced on my knees, the city below my penthouse windows glittering like spilled jewelry. Takeout cools untouched at my side while an old family video plays on my screen. Celeste's 16th birthday. My mother, arm around her, speaks to Aunt Judith. Eleanor planned everything, she says. She's always been good at little parties. Little parties. That same year, I produced a charity gala for 800 guests that cleared over $2 million for pediatric oncology. I paused the video and opened my email archives. 3 years' worth of messages to and from extended family unfurl. In each, my parents carefully sand down my accomplishments. Eleanor's venue business is doing well, Dad wrote to Uncle Robert last Christmas. No mention that, well, means 4 states and revenue nearing 9 figures. My phone pings. Instagram. Celeste has posted a moody black and white of her engagement ring with the caption, "Sometimes the people who should love you most are the ones who hurt you deepest. Grateful for those who stand by me while selfish people destroy others' happiness for personal gain." The comments fill with hearts and outrage. She doesn't tag me. She doesn't need to. I open a blank document. Line by line, I start building a timeline. Overheard comments, minimized milestones, every email where my career is reframed as a hobby, every transfer of funds, every vendor contract tied to Celeste's wedding. Years of erasure assembled into something undeniable. The next morning, Amber arrives with a brown paper bag that smells like butter and cinnamon. She sets it on my desk and pulls out a warm morning bun. "Your favorite from Meredith's," she says. "You look like you haven't slept." I haven't, I admit, accepting it. She leans against my desk, studying me. For what it's worth, I'd have uninvited them from my wedding years ago. The unexpected comment snags on something inside me. I choke out a rough laugh. She joins in, and for a fleeting moment the weight on my chest eases. It slams back into place 30 minutes later when my father's voice booms down the hallway. She can't hide from us forever. Amber tries, and fails, to hold the line at reception. Footsteps thunder toward my office. The door flies open. My father storms in first, face flushed, followed by my mother and a stiff-jawed Celeste. Afternoon light floods the room, catching on the glass and chrome, the perfect stage for a family implosion. "What do you think you're doing?" Dad demands. I lean back, fingers laced on the desk, my posture deliberate. "Exactly what you taught me, protecting my investments." "It's just a silly invitation," Mom says, flapping a hand as if shooing a fly. "We thought you'd be too busy with your project to attend anyway." Project. I roll the word on my tongue. I pick up my phone and tap the control app. Behind me, the wall screen flickers to life, displaying the wedding group text they created without me. Messages march across the glass, seating charts, floral choices, menu debates. And then, in stark black and white, my mother's text attaching a venue receipt. "Just put it on our card. We can use Eleanor's money, but say it's from all of us." Dad's reply, "She'll never know the difference. She's too wrapped up in her little business ventures." Color drains from both their faces as their own words loom over my shoulder. "Did you think I wouldn't find out?" I ask quietly. "Or did you assume I wouldn't matter enough to care?" Celeste sinks into a chair, staring at the wall as if the texts are in another language. Mom opens her mouth, closes it, then tries again. We were just trying to simplify things. But something fundamental has shifted in the room and in me. I realize, with a clarity that almost hurts, that I no longer need their belief to validate what I've built. I'd wanted their recognition like oxygen. Somewhere along the way, I learned to breathe without it. The door opens again. Jessica and Martin enter, arms filled with folders. Unfazed by the tension, Jessica nods to my family and sets a slim portfolio in front of me. "The solution you requested," she says, opening it. Martin unlocks his tablet, pulling up images of the Laurel House, one of my smaller but impeccably run estates. "We can have everything ready on the original date," he says. "All replacement vendors are confirmed." My father watches, brow furrowing. "You have a team." "A remarkable one," I agree. "They've prepared an option that preserves the wedding and my self-respect, something you didn't factor in." A concise, polished presentation follows, laying out logistics with the efficiency my parents never bothered to see in me. It's everything they pretend to do in business, executed at a level they've never reached. When they finish, I pull a Wade Collective, embossed folder from my drawer, its contents assembled during last night's insomnia. The Laurel House. One day. Basic services. I slide it across. "This is my alternative offer." My phone buzzes. A text from Celeste. "I need to speak with you." Alone. I look up. She's standing across the desk, phone in hand, eyes locked on mine with an intensity one haven't seen since we were kids sneaking secrets under blankets. I nod once. She turns and walks out with our parents. 2 days later, salt wind whips across Crescent Bay Lodge's terrace, flinging my hair back and bringing the taste of the ocean with it. I chose this cliffside property deliberately, my crown jewel, with its seamless glass, sculpted stone, and infinity pool spilling into the horizon. Understated luxury with a 7-figure waitlist. The perfect location for a surgical strike. Celeste's sedan appears in the circular drive 15 minutes early. Martin greets her at the entrance and guides her through the lobby. Through the glass, I watch confusion give way to awe as she takes in the architecture, the way the lodge seems to grow organically from the rock. Eleanor. She steps out onto the terrace, silk scarf snapping in the breeze. Her gaze sweeps from the pool to the endless Pacific. "This is yours. Welcome to Crescent Bay." I gesture to the low glass table between us, a leather portfolio resting on it. "Have a seat." The ocean pounds rhythm under our conversation. I open the portfolio. "This is Velvet Knot's confirmation removing me from your guest list." I slide the document across, followed by a bank statement. This shows my $60,000 transfer, labeled a gift with no conditions, per Nadine. Her fingers tremble as she flips through the pages. "These are the vendor contracts," I continue. "Cancellation notices." The full email thread with Nadine. Each sheet lands in front of her with quiet finality. "As of yesterday, Willow Creek no longer has a contract for your wedding. Nor do the caterer, florist, photographer, or planner." My voice stays even, almost detached. Numbers and clauses. Facts. Color drains from her face. "Mom and Dad said you were too busy. That you had Portland meetings that weekend." "I own the venue, Celeste. I own most of the vendors." I hold her gaze. "Did you truly think I wouldn't find out I'd been cut from a wedding I underwrote?" Something shifts behind her eyes, confusion cracking into understanding. "How much of this industry do you control?" she asks, almost to herself. Before I can answer, the terrace door bangs open. My parents appear, propelled by outrage. Dad's golf shirt strains across his chest. Mom's pearls flash in the afternoon light. "What is this?" he snaps, striding forward. "We've been calling you for hours, Celeste." "I'm showing my sister the truth," I say, rising and reaching for the remote. "Since you've worked so hard to keep it from her." "This is ridiculous," he says. "A tantrum over a wedding invitation?" "This isn't about an invitation." I click the remote. A concealed screen glides down behind me, flooding with a detailed organizational chart. Wade Collective spreads across it, 18 premier venues in 5 states, hotel holdings, vendor subsidiaries, revenue streams. Dad's mouth opens, then shuts with a soft click. "Eleanor's just playing at business," he tells Celeste. "She got lucky with a few properties, 412 employees," I say, advancing the slide. 18 venues. 8 hotels. Annual revenue 37 million. That's not luck. That's work. Mom steps forward. Darling, we always knew you were doing well with your little company, but my little company is worth more than Dad's ever was. The silence that follows lands heavy. The insult wasn't the missing invitation, I continue. It was spending my money while acting like I didn't exist. Celeste stands abruptly. I need you both to leave. Celeste, Mom starts. Now. There's steel in her voice I've never heard before. They go reluctantly, the door closing behind them with a soft but significant click. The quiet that follows feels like the center of a storm, briefly calm, thick with potential. I didn't know, Celeste finally says, eyes shining. Any of it. They made sure you didn't. I close the portfolio. The door opens again. Jessica and Martin step out onto the terrace, each with leather-bound presentation books in hand. Miss Wade, Jessica says to Celeste, formal, professional. We've prepared contracts for the Laurel House. It's available on your original date. Martin lays out his documents. We've compiled a full vendor package. Everything from your original plan can be replicated, adjusted for the new location, with 21 days' notice. Celeste watches them, absorbing the deference in their tone, the way they orbit me. Miss Wade, not our Ellie. This is real, she asks when they finish. You do this after everything that's happened? The Laurel House is yours if you want it. I look directly at her. Martin will oversee all logistics. I let a beat pass. But we need to discuss terms. The larger reckoning will happen at Wade Collective Headquarters tomorrow. As Celeste looks between me and the ocean, finally seeing the life I've built, I wonder if I'm prepared to hold firm even when it hurts her, or if I'll fold, yet again, for the sake of peace. Sometimes mercy feels like weakness. Sometimes strength is the choice to forgive. Below us, the Pacific keeps slamming against the cliffs, indifferent, relentless. Like truth. Eleanor, Celeste says quietly, I'd like to see the Laurel House. I nod to Martin, who begins gathering contracts. This isn't victory, not yet. It's only the first time my sister has stepped onto the battlefield with her eyes open. My phone vibrates again. Another call from my mother. Another voicemail, no doubt reshaped from command to pleading now that their social circle has begun to ask questions. The balance has shifted. The war is far from over. The following day, our family attorney opens his briefcase on my conference table with the crisp efficiency of a firing squad. My father sits directly opposite me, glancing at his Rolex every few minutes. My mother perches beside him, smile stretched tight. We've prepared a reasonable compromise, Dad says, sliding a document across the table. You reinstate the original vendors and venue, and we'll ensure you receive a proper invitation. I don't pick up the paper. Behind them, the Seattle skyline glints through floor-to-ceiling glass, the city I carved a place in while they continued acting like I was playing house. They still see a daughter desperate for their blessing. I see two people whose approval is no longer required. A compromise implies equal footing, I say calmly. There's nothing equal about spending $60,000 of my money while excluding me. Mother leans in, her perfume a scent I associate with childhood recitals and tightly controlled affection. Think about what people will say, Eleanor. The family name is apparently worth exactly $60,000, I finish, plus tax. My father's jaw ticks. You've made your point with this little business stunt. Now it's time to be sensible. Little. The word has followed every milestone of my career. Little venture. Little events company. Little Eleanor. I press a button on my phone. Amber, bring in the portfolio. While we wait, neither parent apologizes. They don't acknowledge what they've done. Their focus, as always, is containment. Amber enters and sets a leather portfolio in front of me with reverent care. She knows what's inside. Wade Collective grossed $83 million last year, I say, opening to the first page and turning it toward them. Roughly 7 times your best year, Dad. His eyes skim the numbers, disbelief edging into something tighter. I flip to the Wall Street Journal profile. I ask them to minimize any mention of our family. Not because I was embarrassed by you. Because I thought it might wound your pride if people started thinking of you as my parents, rather than the other way around. Another turn. Property holdings, equity valuations, organizational charts. With each page, their certainty erodes. I don't need your permission to be successful, I say quietly. But I do need your respect if you want to be part of my life as family. The conference room door opens once more. Celeste steps in, eyes reddened but clear. Martin follows, a silent witness who's already shown her the numbers, the contracts, the pattern. My terms are non-negotiable, I continue, closing the portfolio. The Laurel House. Maximum 80 guests. $185,000, paid in full up front. That's outrageous, Dad sputters. That's market rate, I correct. In fact, it's a family discount. Celeste moves to my side of the table. The physical shift is subtle, but the ground under us tilts. I'd like a tour, she says. Of everything. 30 minutes later, we stand in the main ballroom of my flagship venue. Crystal chandeliers cast fractured light over marble floors that cost more than my parents' first home. Staff approach with questions, each addressing me with a professional respect that borders on deference. Miss Wade, the Morrison wedding needs sign-off on the custom lighting rig. Miss Wade, Chicago wants to discuss accelerating the acquisition timeline. Miss Wade, your investment team is in the North Conference Room whenever you're ready. With every interaction, my father's shoulders slump a fraction more. His kingdom, the one he always held over my head, is smaller than the one his daughter has quietly built. My mother drifts toward a display case showcasing awards, framed articles, glossy covers. Her fingers hover over the glass, tracing words she never bothered to read when they arrived in the mail. When we reach my office, she spots the only deeply personal object in the sleek space. A framed photo from Celeste's college graduation. All four of us smiling. My arm around my sister's shoulders. You keep this here, she asks, voice fragile. Some things matter, I say simply. Celeste turns to me, taking my hands in hers. I want you to be my maid of honor, she says. Not just a guest. If you'll agree. Warmth pushes against the walls I've spent years fortifying. I'd be honored, I reply. Then, because I owe myself honesty, I add, but only if it's because you truly want me there. I always did, she whispers. I just didn't understand any of it. My father stands at the window, staring out at a city he suddenly seems to recognize as mine. When he finally turns, something unfamiliar softens his features. We saw what we wanted to see, he admits. We never really looked. In the outer office, my mother sits at a small side table and writes a check to Wade Collective for the Laurel House. Her hand trembles slightly. No argument over cost. No emotional bargaining. The power dynamic has realigned, not because I forced it, but because the facts finally cracked the story they'd been telling themselves. Celeste wraps her arms around me, shoulders shaking. I should have known, she says into my shoulder. I should have seen it. Over her head, I catch Martin's eye and give a single nod. Make it flawless, I tell him. Despite everything. Because when family fails you, you decide whether to repeat the pattern or break it. You decide who you become in response. On the wedding morning, sunlight floods the Laurel House atrium, catching on glass and polished stone. I move through the space with my team, issuing quiet directives they execute without question. White roses overflow from suspended installations, turning the room into a floating garden. The staff hums with disciplined energy. Miss Wade, the champagne is here, Colin, my regional events director, says from the doorway, tablet in hand. Have them use the service entrance, I reply. Start chilling immediately. Command has become second nature, efficient, controlled. The part of me that once shrank at my father's critiques has no place here. I spot my parents entering the foyer. Their walk is slower now, less sure. Dad gives me a brief nod rather than his usual perfunctory clap on the shoulder. Mom's expression is one I almost don't recognize directed at me, genuine admiration, undercut with regret. Eleanor, she says, approaching. It's stunning. Thank you. I gesture to my core team. This is Jessica, my chief legal counsel. Martin, head of operations. Colin, who runs our Pacific Northwest venues. Each greets my mother with polite professionalism. Mrs. Wade, pleasure to finally meet you. They all know, in detail, what led us here. Their courtesy comes without allegiance to my parents' version of events. Their loyalty is mine. Later, crystal flutes catch the light as I stand to toast. The same relatives who used to talk over me at family dinners fall quiet. To Celeste and James, I begin. My voice is steady, clear. Family is complicated. Legacy, even more so. I meet my father's gaze. You don't build empires out of spite, I continue. You build them with vision and then decide who gets to share the view. Applause washes through the room. Celeste rises, tears shining, and steps into my arms with the microphone still in her hand. Not just my sister, she tells the room. My inspiration. Her words settle over me like something I'd long ago stopped hoping to hear. After the speeches, I slip out onto the terrace. The sound shimmers under a copper-gold sunset. Jessica and Martin join me, glasses of champagne in hand. To flawless execution, Martin says. And airtight contracts, Jessica adds, eyes sparkling. I raise my glass. To the family you choose, I say, and the boundaries that make room for both forgiveness and self-respect. The admission comes easily now. Less like surrender, more like truth. Months later, Sunday dinner unfolds not in my parents' house, but in my penthouse, high above the city. The dining table, custom-made for this space, anchors the room. Floor-to-ceiling windows frame the skyline I've methodically conquered. What's your take on a southwest expansion? My father asks between bites, pointing his fork in my direction. Arizona looks promising. With your model, it could be wide-open territory. His tone is unguarded, curious. He's not offering advice, he's asking for it. From the living room, I hear my mother speak to a visiting friend. My daughter, the CEO, she says, holding up a glossy magazine profile I know she's read and reread. Her pride sounds real, if belated. My phone buzzes beside my plate. A text from Celeste. The wedding photos are everywhere, she writes. Every venue tag is Wade Collective. A second message arrives. You didn't just pay for it, Elle. You held it together. I see that now. I look around my home, my parents at my table, my sister's words on my screen, my city outside the glass. Is this what reconciliation looks like? Is it enough that they finally see me now after years of overlooking me? Do true family ties require unconditional belief from the start, or can they be rebuilt on new terms? As I pour more wine and rejoin the conversation, one thing is certain, I'm no longer the one begging to be seen. I'm choosing, deliberately, how much of myself to offer. In the end, each of us has to decide, when your worth is finally acknowledged, do you fully open the door or keep a lock on it, even as you let them in?